Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, this is where we dive into the darkest corners of Reddit. Unexplainable encounters, and stories that will keep you up at night. Make sure to turn off the lights, put in your headphones, and settle in. Because tonight's post is not an ordinary one. I need to get this off my chest. I don't usually share things online. But I've been going through something that's eating away at me. And I don't know who to trust anymore. I've been followed. Watched. Harassed in ways that sound insane when I try to explain them out loud. But I know what I've seen. I know what I've felt. And I know I'm not imagining it. It started small. I work late shifts and usually get home after midnight. I live alone. And my apartment is on the second floor of a building in a pretty average neighborhood. A few months ago, I noticed a man standing across the street when I got home. Hood up, hands in pockets, staring up toward my building. He wasn't smoking, not on his phone, not waiting for anyone. Just standing. Watching. The moment I looked straight at him, he turned and walked away. I told myself it was nothing. Just someone passing through. But then it kept happening. Not the same man every time, but the same situation. Someone across the street when I parked. Someone in a car that pulled away the moment I got out. Footsteps echoing behind me when I walked up the stairs. Only to find the stairwell empty when I turned around. It always happened late, always when I was alone. I tried to brush it off until the night I took my trash out. Around 1 a.m. I carried the bag down, tossed it in, and heard the faintest sound, like a shoe scraping pavement. At the far end of the alley, someone was just standing there. The streetlight barely touched them, but I could make out their outline. They weren't moving toward me, just standing still, watching. I bolted back up the stairs, slammed my door shut, and locked every lock I had. That night I barely slept. I kept hearing noises outside, car doors shutting. Muffled voices, footsteps on gravel. Every time I peeked through the blinds, I thought I saw someone out there at the edge of the shadows. A few days later it escalated. I got my first text from an unknown number. No profile picture, no name. Just the message, "You left your light on." My heart dropped because it was true. I had left the living room lamp on. And the only way someone could know was by looking directly through my window. I yanked the blinds shut and sat frozen, waiting for another buzz. It came the next night. "Why are you up so late?" And then another. "Red sweater looks nice." I was wearing a red sweater while cleaning my kitchen, blinds half open. Whoever it was could see me. They knew my routines. I started closing everything tight, but it didn't matter. The messages kept coming. They mentioned what time I left for work, what groceries I carried in. And once, "You should really lock your back window." My hands shook so hard I almost dropped my phone as I ran to check. Sure enough, I had forgotten to latch it. I couldn't explain how anyone would know unless they were close. Too close. At first I thought it was one creep. But then I realized it was bigger. Cars parked outside for hours with engines running. Sometimes the same black SUV. Sometimes an old white sedan. They would linger until I noticed, then pull away slowly. At work, I'd see the same faces in different places. A man at a cafe across the street, then later leaning against a wall 2 blocks away. Once I saw a woman in a gray hoodie staring into my building lobby mirror. But when I entered she pretended to check her phone. Later I saw her again, leaning on a fence near my bus stop. It was too much to be coincidence. One night I came home and something felt wrong the second I stepped inside. Nothing obvious was missing. Nothing broken, but the air felt disturbed. Like someone had been there. My picture frame on the nightstand was tilted just slightly. The way it wouldn't be unless someone touched it. I convinced myself I was imagining things until the following evening. I was sitting on my couch scrolling my phone when I felt the urge to glance at the blinds. They were closed, but I swear I saw movement in the narrow slats. Like someone's eye shifting just behind them. My chest went tight. I stayed completely still, terrified that if I moved they'd know I noticed. The shadow lingered, watching, before pulling back into the dark. I didn't sleep at all that night. From then on I started documenting everything. License plates of cars that idled outside. Times of night I got texts. Descriptions of the people I recognized more than once. But the more I wrote down, the worse it felt, like they wanted me to notice. Like the entire point was to drive me insane. Sometimes the texts would come in waves. You forgot to lock up. Blue jeans tonight. You look tired. Always from different numbers. I blocked them but new ones appeared. At work my coworkers asked if I was okay because I was jumpy all the time. I couldn't tell them. What would I say? That a rotating cast of strangers were following me. That unknown numbers described my clothes. That someone was staring at me through my blinds at night. Even as I think about it now, it sounds delusional. But delusion doesn't tilt your picture frame. Delusion doesn't make the stairwell door swing shut after you hear footsteps. Delusion doesn't peek through your blinds. It was around this time I realized it wasn't just one person. It was more than that. Patterns started to appear. Whenever I left my apartment, a car would start up down the block. When I walked to the store, the same two people would pass me on opposite sides of the street, both looking down at their phones like it was rehearsed. One night I heard a knock on my door at exactly 3 a.m., soft and steady. When I looked through the peephole, the hallway was empty. The next morning my neighbor, who usually ignored me, smiled strangely and asked if I slept okay. I can't prove it, but the way she said it made my stomach turn. I began to notice conversations going silent when I entered the laundry room. People I'd never seen before hanging out in the parking lot staring at my windows. Sometimes I'd hear voices outside my apartment door, whispering just quiet enough that I couldn't make out the words. The creepiest part was the timing. Every time I turned off my lights at night, I'd hear footsteps in the hallway. When I turned them back on, the noise stopped. Once, when I switched the lights on suddenly, I swore I heard someone sprint away down the hall. The texts shifted too. They became less about observation and more like commands. Go to bed. Don't ignore us. Answer the door. Always from numbers that disappeared as soon as I tried to call back. I felt like a puppet being toyed with. The worst was when I went to the kitchen for a glass of water and noticed one of the blinds in the back room slightly bent outward, like someone had pinched it to peek inside. I hadn't touched it. That was when I stopped pretending it was random. This was coordinated. This was a group of people working together to break me down. The following weeks felt like a trap closing around me. Every time I left home, a car seemed to trail me. Sometimes it was a black SUV that stayed 3 lengths back no matter how many turns I made. Other times it was a white sedan that I spotted in my rear view on 3 separate days. I tried to convince myself I was imagining it. But one night I parked at a grocery store, wandered aimlessly through the aisles just to shake the feeling. And when I came back out, the same sedan was idling 2 rows over with its lights off. As soon as I pulled out, it pulled out too. I drove in circles until I lost it, but the panic didn't fade. Back at home the harassment grew louder. At exactly 2:15 a.m., every night for a week, someone slammed a car door outside my window. Same time, same sound. Once it was followed by footsteps crunching across gravel, stopping right under my window for several long minutes before fading away. Another night I heard tapping on the pipes in the wall. 3 knocks, then silence. Repeated over and over until I wanted to scream. I finally snapped when I caught a man loitering by the entrance to my building as I returned from work. He stared at me, didn't move, didn't speak. I forced myself to walk past him and unlocked the lobby door with shaking hands. Behind me he muttered just loud enough for me to hear, "We see you." I spun around but he was already walking away, disappearing into the shadows. I wanted to run after him, demand answers, but my legs wouldn't move. I stood frozen in the doorway, heart hammering, realizing for the first time that they wanted me scared. They wanted me paranoid, and most terrifying of all, they wanted me to know. I thought staying inside would protect me, but it didn't. If anything, that was when it felt worse. The walls of my own apartment started betraying me. I would be sitting in silence when the faint sound of footsteps passed directly outside my door. Slow and deliberate, as if they wanted me to hear. Sometimes I'd hear the faint creak of the stairwell door opening. But nobody ever came up. The worst was the blinds. One evening I turned off the lights in my living room and walked into the kitchen. And when I glanced back, I swore I saw a hand on the slat of the blinds, gently tugging them open from the outside. I froze, every nerve in my body screaming. I stood motionless until the hand disappeared. But I couldn't bring myself to look outside. I didn't want to know who or what was out there. After that, I started to notice my neighbors acting strange. The woman next door, who had barely spoken to me in the year I'd lived here, suddenly smiled every time I passed and once asked if I was still keeping odd hours. The guy down the hall left his door cracked open whenever I walked past, and I could hear hushed voices just inside. At work it wasn't any better. A coworker I'd never spoken to walked by and said, "Rough night," even though I hadn't mentioned my insomnia to anyone. Another time I caught two coworkers looking at me and whispering, both stopping abruptly when I turned my head. It was spreading. It felt like more people knew, like I was being studied, monitored. That night the texts came again. "We're closer than you think." Followed minutes later by, "Check the blinds." I didn't move. I sat on my couch with the phone trembling in my hand, refusing to give them the satisfaction of obeying. But the longer I sat there, the louder the silence felt, until I swore I heard the faintest rasp of breath just outside my window. I told myself I had to fight back somehow. I bought a small camera online and set it up facing my living room window, convinced I'd catch whoever was watching. For 2 nights, nothing. The third night, I came home from work and found the camera lying on the floor, battery drained, as if it had been deliberately turned off and placed there. Nobody had broken in, at least not in a way I could prove. The door was still locked, windows still latched, but something had been inside. That same night, a text came in at 2:07 a.m., "Nice try." My stomach turned to ice. I started carrying pepper spray everywhere, but it felt useless. How do you defend yourself against shadows? Against a group of people who can be everywhere and nowhere, slipping into your life and leaving only hints that they were ever there. The harassment slowed down for a few days. Almost like they wanted me to relax, and then it came back worse. I woke up one morning to find my car door unlocked. Nothing was stolen, but the driver's seat was reclined all the way back, as if someone had been lying in it. Another night I heard laughter in the hallway outside my apartment. Soft at first, then louder, until it stopped suddenly right at my door. When I looked through the peephole, nobody was there. The last straw came when I got home from work and saw a note taped to my door. Just one word in block letters, "Watching." I took it down with shaking hands and sat on my couch, staring at it until the sun came up. I haven't told anyone in my family because they'd think I'm paranoid. I haven't gone to the police because I know what they'd say. But I know the truth. This isn't random. This isn't just bad luck or coincidence. It's organized. It's deliberate. And it's only getting closer. Every time I hear a noise outside, every time my phone buzzes, every time I see someone watching too closely, I wonder how far they're willing to go. And the part that terrifies me most is that I think they've only just started.